Smriti, say good morning and all.
Just a minute.
Smriti, say something. Can't.
Yeah, good morning. Am I audible?
Okay, ma'am. Let's continue. Yeah, Smriti, start the meeting. Smriti, start. You're muted.
Am I audible now?
Yes, Smriti, you're audible.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Change is the only constant in this world. Only the one who is dynamic survives in changing times. On this note, I, Smriti Agnihotri, welcome all of you present here in the webinar on online versus offline interviews organized by the Internship and Placement Cell of Parli Tirak Vidyalaya Association's Mulund College of Commerce. Before we begin our webinar, I would like to bring it to the notice of the participants that the feedback link will be shared as we near the end of our webinar, as and when the organizers feel right. Kindly be attentive and fill it up as soon as possible to ensure your certification. I would now like to call forward Mr. Siddesh to give the formal introduction of our guest speaker.
Good morning to one and all present here. This is Siddesh and I will be taking you through introduction. Today we have our honorable guest Mr. Jayesh Mehta who will be leading us through the webinar. He is a product head of Idle Management. Mr. Mehta completed his graduation from Taku College in Computer Engineering in 2013. He worked for 5 years in various companies including Accenture in multiple IT profiles. He joined Jamal-Al Bajaj Institute of Management Studies in 2018 and finished his post-graduation in 2020 with finance as his specialization subject. We have extraordinary resource today who will take us through the topic of offline versus online interviews. We are more familiar with offline interviews like we normally consider our clothing, facial expressions, gestures and also arrange documents for it. But when it comes to online interview, we are completely unaware about its preparations and factors that we have considered for it. So I request our speaker to throw some light on this topic. Here you go, sir.
Thank you for those kind words. I'll start off with, the main fact that not a lot of people know how to appear for interviews, as rightly said before, that in this changing world, we don't know exactly how to appear for interviews in this online format. मुझे नहीं पता how do I, have to sit, how do I have to appear, what do I have to say? Okay, that part hasn't changed. What do I have to say? The answers might remain the same, but your background, your appearance, your clothing, your attire, your Wi-Fi and your internet connection have become much more important, at least at the start of the meeting. So while your answers are still important, all those other factors too matter a lot in this online world, and that is what we'll be focusing on today, before eventually moving on to the answers part as well. But I wanted to highlight more on the other various factors which come into play in this online world of interviews, which we have to focus on no matter what, because those are not some things which we can compromise while, before getting to the actual interview itself. On that note, let me just share my screen. Just one second. Is my screen visible?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Now, in online interviews, let's start with the bare minimum basics. Your sitting posture, your background, any distractions, and your attire. Okay, I'll be focusing and touching on each and every one of these points in detail as we move ahead. Let's start with your sitting posture. Just 1 second. Now, in your when you're sitting down to give an interview, always make sure your laptop is on a stable surface. Don't put your laptop in your lap. Okay? If you carry your laptop in your lap, while you move, your laptop will also move. You don't want the image to be like this, completely, constantly moving from time to time. You want it to be steady. You want the frame, at least this particular frame of the other person to be constantly visible throughout the interview. इतना तो मुझे दिखना ही चाहिए. This has to be the bare minimum visible part of the other person. Okay, so that is one of the major things. Now, if you look at the person on the left, she has the laptop in her lap, and वहाँ पे there is a potential scope of her basic frame moving from time to time as she moves. Even the slightest amount of movement will cause a frame to move. So that is something which the other person wouldn't want. That other person, the person who's taking your interview, would want your image to be completely steady. आपको भी नहीं चाहिए रहेगा आपका ध्यान कॉन्स्टेंटली ये लैपटॉप के पोजीशन या फ्रेम पे रहे कि भाई हाउ एम आई लुकिंग टू द अदर पर्सन. You want it to be steady. So always keep your laptop on a steady surface. Steady surface. आपका gap should be properly maintained. Now you wouldn't want to be sitting like this. एकदम ऐसा कैमरा को चिपक के. You wouldn't want to be sitting like this, completely relaxed. It just seems like you're too casual about this interview. You want to be sitting straight. You want to seem like you're paying attention. And you don't want to appear casual or too eager. Okay? You have to be in the middle. There is a middle ground which you have to, tread on. This is the basic part. कैसे बैठना है. ठीक है? This is कैसे बैठना है. So कैसे बैठना है and where you should be placing your laptop, that is taken care of. Now, next part. See, if you see this particular image, the person in that interview, I know I said the bare minimum is at least this frame. Okay? And he has a lot of different things in his background. There's a curtain from which light is coming through. There are some various objects, artifacts kept in his background, which an interviewer can ask him about. But even then, his sitting posture is very pleasant. He's smiling. He's looking directly into the camera. He's sitting straight. He seems like he wants to pay attention, and he's definitely interested in talking to the other person. At the end of the day, interview is just having a conversation with someone else. You want to keep it as informal, as casual as possible. You want the other person to think you're speaking the truth. That is the basic core aspect of an interview, right? You want it to be an engaging conversation. So the other person realizes how interesting a person you are, and that you are genuine and honest, and you really want that particular job, internship, or admission into that college. That is the image or the impression that you want to cast upon the other person. Okay? So just look at his posture. He's smiling, he's sitting straight. He seems genuinely happy to be giving that interview. So that is, the image or the look that you want to give to the other person. On the other side, basically the person taking your interview. Okay? We'll come to the distractions part, the background objects and everything. We'll come to that later. Now, the background part. If you see the person on the left, okay, she has a very plain background. There are no distractions, no light coming through the windows, no objects or artifacts on which the interviewer can question her. Okay, now on the right hand side, if you see the image, there is a window over there. Okay, there is a window over there from which light is coming through. There might be people passing through, making certain kinds of noises which you wouldn't want to disturb you in the middle of an interview. So it's always better to stay away from windows, to close down the drapes, to have a constant and clear source of lighting in a room. That is the preferred mode of interview that you should be aiming for. I don't want any distractions. Light नहीं आना चाहिए, बाजू से ट्रैफिक का आवाज नहीं आना चाहिए, या किसी दूसरे आदमी का आवाज नहीं आना चाहिए. It is a one-on-one conversation with the interviewer. You don't want to be distracted by other people walking through the room. You don't want to be distracted by light coming through the windows. Even the other person wouldn't want that. बार बार मुझे glare आ रहा है. If you see the image on the bottom, the girl has a window in her background and there's a glare coming through. We can't even see her face properly. So you wouldn't want that image to go through to the other person कि भाई इसका चेहरा भी मुझे clear नहीं दिख रहा है. Glare आ रहा है side से, पीछे से कहीं से तो. I don't want that to be, the image that I project. So no windows, no light, no glare, preferably no objects in the background, preferably. ठीक है? Now, distractions. Before moving on to distractions, I'd just like to go back to this image a little. Now, the glare part aside, obviously that is something which should not have been done. The light coming beyond the drapes. But if you look at the objects, now a person can, choose to place certain objects in the view or in the frame basically, which is being sent across to the interviewer. Now, why would I want that? Say, for example, that I achieved something during my graduation years or my work experience or during my schooling days, which was of very significant importance. And I'm just hanging that certificate over there in the background. And I want the interviewer to ask me about it. Again, that is a very, very dangerous move, you could say, because maybe the other person won't ask you about it, or maybe it might be taken in a negative light, saying that you weren't prepared enough to sit down in a clear space. So preferably, I would still say avoid it. But if you are bold and daring enough to put something in your background so that the interviewer asks you about it during the interview, you might as well go for it. That is one thing. Now, I had recently been a part of an interview where a girl had kept certain paintings in her background. Now, what she did was, again, it wasn't exactly thought of move before the interview, but it just kind of happened. The best thing about that interview was that the girl was able to answer questions about the paintings that were kept in the background. And she went on in detail about those paintings, why she drew those paintings, what was the inspiration behind those paintings, what are her career ambitions regarding that particular line of work. She was clear about the fact that it's just a hobby. I don't want to, be an artist or something. This is just something that I do in my free time to alleviate my stress, or something that I just enjoy doing as a hobby basically. So yeah, again, it was not a thought of move, but it worked very well in her favor. It showed that she had a genuine hobby which wasn't fake, because a lot of people do register fake things as their hobbies, but she had the proof to show कि भाई हाँ, ये जो hobby की जो मैं बात कर रही हूँ, it is actually genuine. I have drawn paintings. By mistake, again, it was not an intentional move, but yeah, those paintings were there in my background, and I'm willing to talk about it in detail, list down my inspirations, tell you what I do, how I do it. So that is something which definitely worked a lot in our favor. So that is something, again, I won't say, or I won't suggest you to actually go ahead and do those things. Place your items of hobby in your background, because that could be kind of a risky move. But if you do so, make sure you're completely prepared to answer each and every question on your hobby, especially your hobbies, because a lot of people feel that the hobbies being listed down by the students or people coming up for interviews, whether that be for college admissions or for job interviews, might be a little fake. So it's better to be prepared end to end on your hobby at least. Okay? Now, distractions. Make sure you're sitting down in a room where no one is going to come through for at least the next few minutes at least. I mean, at least for the length of the interview. Say, for example, the interview might be going on for 1 hour, 1.5 hours. You don't know the exact length of the interview. Okay? So make sure there is at least you at least conveyed that information to the people on the other side, to the other side, or basically outside of the room, that please don't disturb me while the interview is going on unless it's a major emergency. Okay? No, because the interviewer wants to talk to you. Again, if there is an emergency, he might allow someone to come. He might let it pass कि भाई एक बार कोई आदमी आके गया रूम में due to some emergency. But if it keeps happening constantly throughout the interview, the other person won't like it. He might feel that his time is not being valued enough. That you were casual about this interview, that you're allowing people to pass through the room constantly. So it is not an impression which you want the other person to have. You want the interviewer to feel that his time is being valued. You want the interviewer to feel that you are completely focused on this particular interview. You don't have anything else to do right now. You just want to answer his questions. He or she is the most important person in your life at that point of time. That is the image that you want to want the other person to perceive basically. Okay, so make sure no one is coming or passing through the room in which you're giving the interview, for the entire period of time, unless it's a genuine emergency, in which case it's possible. Okay, fine. If you could explain it to the other person, that is perfectly normal. But let that not happen on a regular basis. That is what I'm trying to say. Now, another thing, before you start the interview, we've already talked about the distractions, about the windows, the drapes, the background objects, okay, the basic sitting posture. Now, moving on to the Wi-Fi, the AC, the fans, the lighting. You want to sit in a room where the lighting is constant. Just switch on one proper light. Make sure your face is well lit and clearly visible. Okay, make sure your face is well lit and clearly visible. And how do you ensure that? By testing out various platforms. Now, we are having this meeting on Microsoft Teams, but you should also be well versed with Zoom, Google Meet. These are the three bare minimum platforms you should be well versed with, because you don't know which kind of link would be generated by the recruiting company or the college taking admission. You wouldn't know that. So let's take guesswork out of the picture. तीनों apps का जो आपका Google Meet है, Zoom है and Microsoft Teams. Practice on all three of these apps. Generate links. Make sure you're sitting in the room in which you're eventually going to give the interview. Make sure you follow all the instructions and all the tips basically which you're going to actually implement while giving the interview. Sub end-to-end implementation ensure करो, and only then before the interview day, okay, only then before the interview day will you be able to focus on the content part, when all these prerequisites have been taken care of. Otherwise, if you're constantly worrying about all these things, तो then आपके interview के content पे आप ध्यान ही नहीं दे पाओगे, which is something you don't want. You want the interview to be about the content, but these prerequisites should not come in the way, which is why we are focusing on these so much. कि भाई, I don't want people coming through. I don't want there to be constant noises. I don't want the light to go off in the middle of the interview and there to be complete darkness in the room. I don't want these things to happen. So ये सब ensure करो, ये सब बराबर है, सही से है, taken care of है. All these things are out of the way before we move on to the actual interview itself. ठीक है? So lighting part, आपका noises नहीं आना चाहिए. Regarding the AC, what you can do is switch on, if you have an air conditioner at home, if you have one at home, switch it on at least 15 to 20 minutes before the interview. Make sure the room is cool enough before you start the interview, and then just before you start the interview, usko switch off kar do. Switch off the air conditioner. Fan ko ekdam bare minimum basic level pe you can just keep it on, taki there is no noise, no distraction AC ka ya fan ka bhi. The room is cool enough. You've kept the fan at a very normal rate so that you have ventilation in the room and you don't feel any kind of suffocation. So that part is also taken care of. आपका Wi-Fi, अगर if you're using your Wi-Fi or your mobile hotspot, whichever internet connection you're using, make sure you test it multiple times. ऐसा नहीं होना चाहिए interview के बीच में your data pack got finished and then you have to switch to another mode of internet connection basically to continue the interview. That shouldn't happen. That is something which is non-negotiable. This is something you should be taking care of before the interview for sure. Okay? Again, some non-negotiables. Now the attire. Please don't wear a white shirt. Do not wear a white shirt. Why we always say that is because unless you have some specific, dress code of your college or of that company, whatever, please do not wear a white shirt, because if you wear a normal, I'm not saying wear some dark colored shirt or some funky shirt, wear a simple plain light colored shirt, light. It kind of shows a little personality. it kind of shows that you're not afraid. You're not afraid of the other person in the interview. ठीक है, white shirt is being like completely formal. It kind of shows you're a little submissive. But if you wear a light colored shirt, it shows that you're not afraid to have a little personality. It can be as simple as a light blue colored shirt or light green colored shirt. ठीक है, keep it simple. Don't try any funky colors or dark colors, but please don't wear white is what we would suggest. Another thing, make sure you're not sitting for the interview in your shorts or something else, because if your luck is genuinely terrible and the interviewer asks you to stand up during the interview and to see your full profile, and if you're wearing shorts underneath that shirt, then it just sends a very unprofessional vibe to the other person. Just wear your proper attire, which you would have done in case it would have been an offline interview. Make sure you're sitting properly, make sure of the Wi-Fi internet connections, make sure of the AC, fan, windows, glare, lighting. All these are basic prerequisites which should be taken care of before we move on to the actual interview. अभी तक तो actual interview start भी नहीं हुआ है. अभी तक तो actual interview पे हम आए भी नहीं है कि interview में कैसे बात करना है, क्या करना है, कैसे करना है. उस पे हम आएंगे. These are just the basic prerequisites कि हाँ भाई ये तो करना ही करना है. These are the basic prerequisites जो कुछ भी हो जाए करना ही करना है, because we don't want the interview to start off on the wrong foot. उसका इंटरव्यू के स्टार्ट में ही सामने वाले का इंप्रेशन खराब नहीं हो जाना चाहिए कि भाई ये क्या कर रहा है, ये आदमी कर क्या रहा है. That should not be the first thought that enters into the interviewer's mind. That should not be the first impression that he has of you. Obviously, even if you start off on the wrong foot, you can always improve your image. But why take that risk? Why would we want to start off on the wrong foot when we can do everything right? Because all of these things are controllable. All of these things are controllable. ऐसा कुछ नहीं है कि हमारे कंट्रोल के बाहर है ये सारी चीजें. We can control these things. We can plan for these things, and we can make sure all of these things are up to the mark on the D-Day. ठीक है? Now, AC का मैंने बोल दिया. If you're wearing earphones, or if you are having a headphones, or if you're not wearing anything, basically your earphones or headsets, or you're just conversing via the laptop mic, make sure you also test that. जब आप लिंक जनरेट करने के आपस में टेस्टिंग करोगे for all those 3 applications which I mentioned, make sure you also check for video and audio. Make sure you do that. And if you have something to share, जैसे for example there are some interviews where people expect you to share some presentation or some Excel sheet to show some kind of calculations. It happens in interviews. It does happen. So make sure वो आपका sharing का button is also working properly. ये सब चीजें टेस्ट करके रखो on every platform, ताकि आपको कोई भी प्लेटफॉर्म पे सामने वाला आदमी इंटरव्यू का लिंक भेजे, you don't get stuck. You're familiar with the layout of every platform. You know what to do and when to do it. It should not happen कि इंटरव्यू के बीच में आप उसको पूछो कि सर और मैम, could you please show me how to share my screen, or could you please show me how to do this or do that. They don't want to answer those questions of yours. They want to focus on the interview and get done with it. Now, always appear for the interview on your laptop and not your mobile. ठीक है? If you see those 2 images, left में और right में, ठीक है, लेफ्ट में और राइट में अगर आप 2 इमेज देखते हो, लेफ्ट में the person, again, he is wearing a white shirt, that is fine, but he is wearing a tie, he is wearing a jacket, he is looking smart, उसका बैकग्राउंड एक फिक्स्ड है, एंड उसने लैपटॉप अपना सामने एक स्टेडी सरफेस पे रखा है, एंड उसका फ्रेम ऑफ रेफरेंस इज आल्सो क्वाइट गुड. ठीक है, ओवरऑल आई वुड गिव हिम quite good marks on his appearance and the start at least at the start of the interview. Whereas the person on the right side, the person on the right part of the image, that person is giving the interview on his mobile phone. Abhi, if you look at those 2 angles, I don't want to be looking at the other person's chin. I want to look at his face straight, head on. I don't want to be looking at his chin. That is not something that I want to do. So if you look at that, it's a little weird. ऐसा angle है. You don't want that to be the image you have of the other person. Clear, steady face होना चाहिए, clear, steady angle होना चाहिए. And I don't want to look at the roof of the room. मुझे background, again, उसके background में देखो AC दिख रहा है, और भी बहुत सारी चीजें दिख रही है. Again, it might have been unavoidable. It might be something which is out of his control there, that might be the best place he could actually give the interview. All those considerations, okay, that is fine. But even then, if possible, please don't have any distractions, don't have anything in your background. Make sure you are giving the interview on your laptop and not your mobile phone, because interviews भले ही online world में चले गए, people might take it a little more casually these days कि हाँ भाई interview ही है, यहाँ नहीं तो कहीं और लग ही जाएगा. But make sure you give it your best shot in every interview, चाहे किसी भी चीज के लिए हो. Make sure you give it your best shot. That is what we aim for, right? When we enter an interview, we are focusing on, clearing that admission round for that particular college, clearing the selection round for that particular job. That is the entire or main purpose of giving an interview. Or agar if we don't take care of these prerequisites, then that entire purpose is defeated. You might as well not give that interview. अगर कर रहे हो तो might as well give it your best shot. जितना होता है उतने अच्छे से दो. बाद में luck अगर समझो आपके साइड नहीं रहा, if there is a better candidate or if they decided to go in some other direction, that is fine. But at least you will be happy कि भाई मेरे से जितना हो सकता था मैंने किया. मैंने इंटरव्यू सही से दिया, मैंने बाकी सारे जो कंट्रोलेबल्स थे मेरे हाथ में, आई कंट्रोल देम वेरी वेल, आई मेड श्योर आई गिव अ गुड इंप्रेशन टू द अदर पर्सन. दैट इज व्हाट यू वांट. That is what the image you want to portray to the other person, that you're interested, you want that college seat or that job, you're there for that specific purpose, you're prepared, you're willing to answer each and every question that the other person other person asks. That is what you want to happen in that interview. Okay, now okay, we talked about all these things. Now before we move on to the content part of the interview and how to write a resume.
Just sitting.
Yes. Just give me a 1 minute, just 1 minute. Am I audible and visible?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Sorry for that interruption. Yeah. So as we were saying, yeah, just 1 second. I think it just happened because I paused the video right now. I did pause the video right now. What I'll do is I'll pause my video so that we don't face this issue. At least my audio is what I'm saying completely audible, or am I breaking off in between?
It's audible.
Yeah. ठीक है, I'll do that. I'll turn off my video and I'll keep my screen sharing on. The screen is visible, right? I think it is presenting to everyone. I'll just keep the video on. If it's breaking, it's fine. Chalega. The main part is that I'm audible and the presentation that I'm making is visible to everyone. Okay. Now, we talked about the basic prerequisites of what to do in an interview. And before we move on to the actual content part of what you have to say, how you should be tackling certain questions, let's look at, some of the industries and sectors which have been affected by, we don't want to consider that while giving interviews or something, but we have to be aware of the fact that the world has changed since the introduction of this deadly disease called as corona into our ecosphere, or basically our atmosphere. Now, if you look at certain industries like travel and tourism, restaurants, hotels and bars, these are some of the ones which have been most obviously affected, by the environment that you're living in right now. Especially if you look at, say, for example, 3 to 4 months behind, people were afraid to go out. People were afraid to travel. Obviously, it's opened up. Almost everything has opened up now. People have started traveling. Staycation, workation are some very popular terms that are being heard in a lot of circles. A lot of people are going outside. Ki bhai, let's go off to some exotic place, and if there's enough internet, we'll work from there. We'll take our meetings from there, and all of those things are happening right now. But if you looked at this particular industry 3 4 months before, no one was willing to risk to travel, to enjoy being at certain locations. All that glamour and allure had gone off. It is slowly reviving now, but even then, if you're looking to get a job in this restaurant, hotels, bars, travels and tourism industry, do be a little cautious. Do a certain amount of research on the financials of the company before you actually want to take a job over there, because a lot of companies, they survived through this turbulent times by losing a lot of money. They were posting a lot of losses, they were losing a lot of money, they barely survived, and they might just be on the brink of going bankrupt and closing down. So make sure you look properly into the company that you're willing to enter. Try talking to current employees, try talking to employees who have recently left. Maybe someone in your circle might be present in that particular company, so that is all fine. Next part is the luxury goods and the beauticians. Now, a lot of people were not able to earn enough money to run their houses. Again, I'm not talking about the upper class, I'm talking about the lower class and the middle class. Even the middle class might be divided, say, somewhere into the lower middle class and the upper middle class. The upper middle class was just about able to scrape by. They might have been able to spend a little on luxury goods, but the lower middle class and the lower class were barely, passing through these times, barely able to feed their families and make sure everything was on track. So the amount of money being spent on luxury goods, it reduced a lot. Even the upper class and the upper middle class were not willing to spend money on certain things which they might not need in the near future, in order to save money, because they didn't know what the future looked like. Somewhere, say for example, half a year or a year down backwards, we didn't know कि आज जाके ऐसा होगा. We didn't know कि कितने vaccines आएंगे. It was all uncertain. Even now, we don't, the vaccines that we have, even now, उसके लेने के बाद में भी people are still getting corona again. So we can't say for sure that we have found a cure for this. So it's always good to save money in these kind of times, and almost everyone was following through with that same policy. Okay, let's save money. Let's not, spend unproportionate amounts on things we might not need right now. And since people were not going out, meeting other people, the amount of money being spent on beauty parlors, salons, it also nosedived a lot. A lot of such places closed during the lockdown, and even those that were able to survive were able to do so after posting a lot of losses. So spending on these particular industries has obviously reduced a lot, a lot. Now let's look at the bright side. Let's look a little on the bright side. We've looked at companies and industries and sectors that might have been severely affected by this particular phenomenon called as corona. But let's also look at companies who took advantage of this particular uncertain time, made sure that they created unique and innovative products so that people could still work, people could still survive, and people could look with hope towards the future. Okay, the first one being the health industry and the insurance industry. Now, the health industry obviously made significant strides, and while the vaccines that we have right now, they might not be 100% certain, but to come up with at least some kind of a solution to make sure that the masses are at least protected even a little is some kind of a major achievement for the health industry. Because a few months ago we didn't know, हमको नहीं पता था कि भाई वैक्सीन आएगा नहीं आएगा, हमको कुछ आइडिया ही नहीं था. We didn't know anything. But to have come up with, but for so many companies to have come up with their own vaccines and to make sure that the people are, safe at least to a certain point is nothing sort of miraculous. So that is a big up for the health industry. Definitely, they have helped us feel a little more safer again, and they have also helped revive the travel, tourism, hotel bar industry, restaurants industry, at least to a certain extent, because people are, traveling to other places because people are double vaccinated, they have gotten their doses, they are taking certain amount of precautions, wearing masks and doing other things. So those kind of industries have seen some sort of a revival due to the health industry. That is one major sector that has been booming. The second part is insurance. Now, people okay, there are two basic cases. या तो आपके पास insurance था, health insurance, या तो नहीं था. For those people who did not have health insurance at all, they have seen and realized the importance of having one, given the amount of expenditure and expenses a family could incur if one contracted this particular disease or one fell ill during this particular time due to some other reason. It's always better to have a health insurance. So that is one thing that the people who did not have health insurance have realized during these times. The second, the people who had health insurance kind of increased their cover. Say, for example, if they had a health insurance cover of approximately 5 lakhs, then they kind of doubled it to 10 lakhs. Some even increased it to 15 lakhs, including a family floater. So they realized the importance of having some background of, a safety net, which would cover their expenses in the case of an extreme event, or being hospitalized for a lengthy period of time. They wouldn't have to worry about the finances part. They would just have to worry about their family member getting better. Because that is all something anyone wants to focus on during those particular times. So the health insurance industry definitely has helped a lot of families again feel safe, feel worry free about making sure that their family members get the best of treatment in the best of hospitals. So that is definitely something which is that is definitely an industry which has been on the rise during these particular times. Now your essential services. Now your essential services. A lot of people stocked up on a lot of essential items like rice, bajra, jawar, and all of other things which you would be using to prepare food at home, oil. Just giving some basic examples. So the FMCG companies are fast moving consumer goods. That's the full form of FMCG. So basically FMCG companies are the ones like Hindustan Unilever, ITC, Godrej, Britannia. Okay? These are some of the FMCG companies. If you look at the biscuits that you buy, if you look at the essential products that are there in your house, अगर आप उसका जो box रहता है उसका backside देखोगे, you will realize the name of the companies printed over there, which is producing that particular item. We might know the names of the products, but we might not know the name of the company producing that product. So just एक बार घर पे आज कभी time मिले 5-10 minutes, just take a look at the boxes of the various items kept in your kitchen, and you will realize the names of these companies being repeated there quite a lot. So those kind of companies, FMCG companies, again received a massive boost with people stocking up on essential items which they would need in their day-to-day lives. So that is another sector which experienced a massive boom. Now, over here we are meeting on Microsoft Teams. I talked about Zoom and Google Meet. but the actual pioneer in this industry was Skype. Sorry. Okay, I'll assume that was not for me. Okay, so the actual pioneer in this industry was Skype. Skype was the first one to introduce video meetings, this kind of a formal interface where people could interact with each other, even come organizations with each other, or people within a certain organization. So that was the major thing or the main pioneer in this particular industry. But if you look at the scenario now, we don't even hear that name. All we hear is Zoom, Microsoft Teams, and Google Meet. These are the major tools being used by companies, and especially Microsoft Teams has literally taken over the entire corporate space. I've been on the other side, and I know uh, from what I saw, Microsoft Teams was the most popular application being used by companies because of its user-friendly interface, the ease with which we can share documents with each other and edit documents in the same window. So for companies, especially Microsoft Teams was a boon, a major saving grace. So again, it's not just important being the pioneer in a particular industry, it's also important to keep creating and releasing innovative products so that you remain the market leader or the occupier of a majority of the market share in that particular industry or segment of which you're a part of. So make sure कि भाई just पहले entry ले लिया, पहले मैंने वो market space create कर लिया, that is not important. वो space को मुझे dominate करते रहना है. I want to be the leader in that space for years and years. That is my aim. And I don't want other companies to come in and take that opportunity or snatch it from me. So it's not just important being the first one, it's also important to be the last person standing in every sector and industry. Okay? I'll just take one more example on this. The electric cars. Now, obviously, Elon Musk has brought a big boom into this particular industry with his ambitious projects and various companies, SpaceX, Solar City, Tesla. These are some of the names which I'm sure everyone has heard. Maybe not every one of them, but at least a few of them. Now, Tesla has been producing electric cars, a lot of electric cars in the United States and its various factories elsewhere. But with the revolution that he's leading, it's bound to happen sometime in the future, or maybe even in the near future, that we will be seeing more and more of electric cars even in India and other countries, in our basically in our neighborhood. Now, why are electric cars so popular is because it kind of presents a more sustainable approach to the environment. I completely agree that the batteries are made out of certain components which might not be that environment friendly. But if you look at the overall effect on the environment caused by the cars or the vehicles we are driving now as opposed to the vehicle cars, there is definitely a certain uplift, at least a certain uplift. With that in mind, this particular industry is going to go into massive overdrive. Already companies in India are preparing for this eventual acceptance by people of this particular kind of vehicles. They are readying themselves so that this revolution does not catch them off guard. Another big industry, if you can be a part of that in the coming few years, that is definitely somewhere where you would want to do a job or take a job. Okay? Now, we've taken care of the prerequisites, we've taken care of the industries where you would want to apply. Now, moving on to the actual interview. What one should say, what one should not say in this particular interview. Okay? First part, be dressed for the interview. We do not want the interview to start off on a bad note just because you were lazy. We've already discussed about this in detail. Give a positive twist to everything you say and have done in your life. Okay? Now, I get that some students or some people might have scored, low marks in certain years or certain degrees. होता है, सबके साथ होता है. Everyone has a weak spot, but we have to find a way to put it, in a positive light. Let's say, I'll just give you a few examples. Let's say, for example, I have done my engineering. It was a 4-year degree. Now, in that 4-year, let's say, for example, if I scored lesser marks in the second year, if I have a valid and justifiable reason saying, yes, sir, ma'am, I acknowledge the fact that I scored less in my second year, but that was due to the fact that I was also taking part in a lot of other extracurricular activities or sports or something else, which is why my focus wavered a little in that particular year. But I made sure I got back on track in the subsequent years, and as you can see, my score improved. So that is, you realized a fact, you realized a certain fact that you were lagging behind in your academics in a certain year, and you improved on it. That is one part. That is one part. The other part would be, uh, you do not have something, to justify your low marks, saying you did not participate in any other activities, you did not do anything else. Okay? But if you have some extracurricular, not extracurricular, some skills, extra skills, if you've done some courses, some other online courses basically, or some offline courses wherever, if those are those are from reputable institutions, and they add a certain extra value to your resume or your CV in order to give you a slight advantage over other candidates. Say for example, uh, if you're interviewing for the position of a advertising campaign manager, and you've done a specific course highlighting the effects, of these particular kinds of advertisements on social media, and how to leverage social media and reach out to the right kind of people, make sure you have the maximum coverage. If you've done some kind of a course Vaisa, and if you sit for that interview, the other person will obviously feel, okay, he might have gotten lower marks in his degree course or post graduation, whatever, but he has something, some kind of a practical experience. Obviously, तुमने कोर्स किया है which is something different and additional, and ज़्यादा practical experience शायद ना हो उसमें. You might not have actually run campaigns, but at least you might know a little bit about the theory behind running those campaigns, and that will definitely give you a leg up over other candidates sitting for the same interview. So if you have low marks, if you have some other weakness, make sure you do something extra to cover up for it. That is how you'll get ahead in this interview game. Okay? The third and the most important thing, never ever 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 lie. Never lie. Please don't lie. The person on the other side will know when you're lying, because they've been doing this for a lot of years. They know how to read your change in body language, the way your tone literally alters when you're saying the truth and when you're saying a lie basically. So never ever lie. It's their job to know when you're lying. It's literally their job to know when you're lying. And even when you're guessing, make sure you let the other person know that I'm making a calculated and educated guess. Always do that. Okay, sir, ma'am, I don't know the exact answer to that question, but if I had to make a guess, I believe it would be this. Frame your sentence in such a way that the other person knows that you're not sure about that answer. Even then you're willing to take a calculated risk. And always take that calculated risk only when you are almost certain of that answer. ऐसा नहीं होना चाहिए आप literally हवे में तीर मार रहे हो. आपको you are not 100% sure, but you are almost sure कि हाँ भाई यही आंसर होना है. At that point, even then, don't take a risk. Always say कि भाई I'm taking an calculated guess and I feel this might be the answer. When you say 80 to 90% sure of the answer, that is even then when you would frame your answer like this. ठीक है? So अगर बिल्कुल श्योर नहीं हो या 50-50 हो तो रिस्क मत लो. You can always say I don't know. It is completely fine to not know the answer to every question that is being asked in an interview. एकदम नॉर्मल बात है वो. हर चीज आपको पता नहीं होगी, and that is perfectly fine and normal. Not a lot of people realize that it is fine to say no. No sir, no ma'am, I don't know the answer to that question. It is perfectly fine to say that, as long as you say it in a very normal tone. That is the main thing. You should be humble about the fact that you don't know the answer to that question. You just say, I'm sorry sir, I'm sorry ma'am, I don't know the answer to that question. That is perfectly fine to do in an interview. नहीं पता होता यार, सबको सब कुछ पता होता तो तुम आज वहां पे इंटरव्यू के लिए नहीं बैठे होते, तुमको ऑलरेडी कोई जॉब मिल गया होता. And that is something which even the other person appreciates, that you're being honest. ठीक है, मुझे ये नहीं पता है. You're being honest, because honesty is always appreciated. ठीक है. One more thing. If you want time to think about an answer, if you want time to think about an answer, take time. आप बोल सकते हो, could you just give me a minute to think about it? The other person will either say yes or no. अगर वो yes बोला तो fine, you can take your time. ना बोला तो then आप क्या ही कर सकते हो? Then you would have to answer immediately, or if you don't know the answer, say I don't know. ठीक है? If the other person, it will very rarely happen that the other person will not give you time or say no, no I can't give you time, you will have to answer on the spot. Very rarely ऐसा होगा. Most of the times the other person will give you time to think about it, ठीक है? And that is a fairly accepted practice. Even after taking time, if you're still not sure of the answer, you can still say sorry sir, sorry ma'am, I don't know. ऐसा बहुत लोग वो सोचते हैं, अरे यार मैंने अभी टाइम ले लिया सोचने के बारे में, अभी तो मुझे कुछ ना कुछ तो आंसर देना ही पड़ेगा, I will have to take a risk or gamble. You can still say no. You can still say no. You can still say I'm not sure about the answer. I'm sorry ma'am. I'm sorry sir. छोड़ दो, चलेगा. जरूरी नहीं है हर आंसर देना, जरूरी नहीं है सब कुछ पता होना. You can always take time, you can always say no, you can always do these things in an interview. Now, coming to the most important question in an interview. It's the first one that is generally asked in any interview. आपका college admission हो, आपका job interview, कुछ भी हो. Tell me something about yourself. ये पूछा ही जाता है unless they have already scanned your CV or resume very thoroughly and they want to ask you about specific things. This is the first question they'll always begin with. Because why they do this is because it kind of makes you comfortable, because you're speaking about something which you want to speak, and they assume कि ये आंसर का प्रिपरेशन तो ये कैंडिडेट ने किया ही, हर कोई कैंडिडेट ने किया ही होगा. It puts you at ease. It puts you at ease. You start off on the stronger foot basically. कि भाई these are some things which I want to talk about. ठीक है? Because interview is basically it's a game of skill. It's a game of skill. You want to focus on your strengths. The other person might want to focus on your strengths, or he or she might want to bring out your weaknesses and talk more about that. So it's a game of skill. You want to steer the conversation one way, the other person wants to take it some other way. You have to meet somewhere in the middle and say, okay, fine, this is somewhere we are both comfortable talking about, and then proceed. But obviously we would want to steer the interview towards our strengths. So this is the perfect opportunity to do that. Perfect gateway to do that. Obviously start off, hi sir, hi ma'am, my name is this. My name is this. Try to avoid mentioning your schooling. Unless you've achieved something big or something of significance during that time. Always try to start off with your graduation degree. Obviously, you are still students. You might not have a lot of work experience to talk about. Okay, so schooling, 11th, 12th के जब points आते हैं, if you have done something during that time, please mention it. आपके पास work experience नहीं है to talk about. आपके पास school है, 11th, 12th है, and graduation है. So make sure आपके सारे achievements, आपका सारा notable things which you've done during these particular years, you mention them in a crisp format. It should be a one-liner. Okay, I achieved this. This is the rank that I got out of these many people. Okay, try to quantify your achievements. Quantify. What do I mean by quantify is, say for example, you appeared in some competition, you secured second rank. आपका second rank आया वो competition में, ठीक है? So ऐसे मत बोलो कि second rank आया मुझे. Always say कि I got the second rank out of these many people. So it gives an idea to the other person कि भाई how many people were competing for that particular spot and how many people did you beat to get to that particular spot. Always try to quantify your achievements. जैसे if you go ahead, when you have a certain amount of job experience, work experience, and when you're looking to switch jobs or do something, in your previous work experience, you would always want to say कि भाई, let's just take an example. I helped the company make revenue of these many thousands, lakhs, crores, whatever. I helped the company cut costs by saving this many rupees, thousands, lakhs, crores, whatever. It's always good to quantify your achievements because it gives an idea to the other person कि भाई आपने ठीक है, आपने revenue बढ़ाया, आपने cost कम किया, कितने से? Because that is the next logical question they would ask, right? ठीक है, आपने रेवेन्यू बढ़ाया, कितने से, कैसे बढ़ाया, बराबर. दोस आर द टू मेजर क्वेश्चंस व्हिच एनी रैशनल और लॉजिकल पर्सन विल आस्क यू, अगर आप ये बताते हो तो. ठीक है कि भाई कितने से बचाया और कैसे बचाया. कितने से बचाया आपने उधर ही बता दोगे, बाद में द ओनली क्वेश्चन लेफ्ट इज कैसे बचाया. देन यू कैन लिस्ट डाउन योर प्रोसेस, योर थिंकिंग, योर आइडियोलॉजी बिहाइंड फॉलोइंग दैट पर्टिकुलर प्रोसेस, and how did you actually manage to convince others of your process and ideology, and eventually come out with this positive achievement or outcome. That is what you want to do or frame the question or answer as, barabar. So always mention all your achievements in a quantifiable format. ठीक है, हम बात कर रहे थे स्कूलिंग, 11th 12th एंड ग्रेजुएशन की. ज्यादातर ठीक है, यू माइट नॉट हैव अ लॉट ऑफ वर्क एक्सपीरियंस, देन फोकस ऑन दीज 3 थिंग्स, बट मेक श्योर आपका सही तरीके से क्वांटिफाइबल फॉर्मेट में योर अचीवमेंट्स एंड अचीवमेंट्स आर लिस्टेड. योर अचीवमेंट्स आर लिस्टेड एंड try to include your strengths from time to time. Try to include your strengths from time to time. Say for example, during your graduation time, you were the host for, say for example, 2 to 3 events. So when you mention that, I also hosted X number of events during my graduation days, given my love for public speaking and interacting with large audiences. So it's not that, it's not that out there. You're not just stating it randomly कि हाँ भाई I love speaking to large audiences, I love hosting events. ऐसा नहीं, you're clearly stating something कि this is something I've done and it is because of this thing. So एक ठीक है, मुझे ये चीज पसंद है, this is my strength, but I also have something as proof to show for it. मैं सिर्फ बोल रहा हूँ कि हाँ भाई ये मेरा strength है. Say for example, I enjoy public speaking, but I've not done it in the past 3-4 years. Then it's not your strength, it's just something that you think is your strength. But if it genuinely was your strength, you would have done something, to show something as proof. तो अगर आप कोई events host कर रहे हो, आप कोई कुछ और कर रहे हो of a similar nature, and then you mention the fact that I love public speaking or interacting with large audiences, then it seems a little more credible. And you want that image to go to the other person. उसको लगना चाहिए हाँ भाई ये कुछ फेक नहीं रहा है, genuinely ये इसका strength है, credible जो चीज है वो credible है. And ये strength उसका confirm क्यों है, क्योंकि इसने already इसके ऊपर act करके इसने कुछ proof की तरह दिखा रहा है. That is what they want, not just you stating your strengths, your achievements or anything else, but actual proof देना उसके हाथ कि भाई ये strength है तो ये क्यों strength है, बराबर. That is something which the other person expects of you. Now ये पूरा हो गया, tell me something about yourself. Now what will generally happen is the interviewer, again, they might give you time to complete this answer of yours, or they might cut you in the middle and want to digress on a certain point that you've mentioned. So ये answer में जो चीज आप mention कर रहे हो, make sure you're well prepared कि उसमें in depth जा सकता है सामने वाला person, in depth जा सकता है. Say for example, you mention your hobbies at the end. जैसे schooling हो गया, 11th 12th हो गया, graduation हो गया, आपने अपना strengths बता दिया, achievements बता दिया, corporate work experience नहीं है तो अगर वो आपने mention कर दिया थोड़ा, and then at the end you mention कि apart from this my hobbies include playing cricket, reading books, or doing something else, playing the guitar, swimming. ठीक है, you mention this. Now if you mention reading books as your hobby, the first question that the other person is going to ask, which was the last book you read? And give me a brief summary of it. ये पहला question, मैं होता तो मैं ये पहला question पूछता, क्योंकि I want to see whether the person is genuinely reading books, genuinely वो hobby है क्या उसका. अगर मैं swimming बोल रहा हूँ मेरा hobby, या मेरा बोल रहा हूँ मैं playing cricket hobby, ठीक है, if I'm playing cricket, I would obviously be following international cricket up to a certain level at least. थोड़ा तो मुझे आइडिया होगा रिसेंट सीरीज के स्कोर्स का, कौन टॉप स्कोरर था, कौन लीडिंग विकेट टेकर था, क्या चल रहा है क्रिकेट के वर्ल्ड में, एक बेसिक आइडिया होगा. सो दैट इज समथिंग व्हिच दे एक्सपेक्ट यू टू नो. अगर आपसे बोलोगे नो आई जस्ट एंजॉय प्लेइंग क्रिकेट, देन दैट इज फाइन, बट इट सीम्स अ लिटिल weird for you to enjoy playing cricket and not enjoy watching it. That seems a little weird. So make sure even if you don't like watching cricket, आपको थोड़े recent series के scores पता हो, top scorer कौन था, leading wicket taker कौन था, पूरे series का, not of every match, पूरी series का कौन था, थोड़ा in depth पता है कौन से series आने वाले हैं, जैसे for example अभी T20 World Cup आने वाला है, so you know those details, कहाँ host हुआ जा रहा है वो T20 World Cup, ये सब आपको पता होना चाहिए. if you're saying playing cricket is my hobby, ठीक है, so hobbies another major point which can include over here, which you will be asked about in detail directly. वही टाइम पे या तो लास्ट में पूछेगा वो आपको हॉबीज का, when he wants to end the interview on a lighter note. Generally people tend to do that कि भाई लास्ट में हॉबीज के मन में पूछते हैं ताकि we can end the interview on a lighter note and close down the interview. ठीक है, so उसके बारे में भी make sure you're well prepared. Now, as I mentioned, job responsibilities versus quantifiable achievements. Make sure आप responsibilities अगर लिख रहे हो, ठीक है, that is fine. If you don't have a lot of quantifiable achievements कि भाई I've done this, I've done that, A, B, C, 3-4 पॉइंट है मेरे पास, A, B, C, D, नहीं है तो एटलीस्ट आप job responsibilities लिख दो कि if you've just started in that particular job, that is fine. But try to find out some achievement, some quantifiable achievement which you've managed even in those, let it be even say 2 to 3 months. बहुत मुश्किल होगा, I completely get the fact कि मुश्किल होगा, but just try. Give it some time to think about, give yourself some time to think about it. ऐसा नहीं है कि आपको एक ही दिन में आपका resume या CV पूरा बनाना है, आपको टाइम लो, आप आराम से टाइम लो, देख के आराम से बात करो, ठीक है. Objective, try to avoid writing down an objective at the end, at the start of the resume or CV, because they know the objective. They know that you want to get into this job. They know that you applied to this job because you want to work there. So you don't need to mention any kind of objective as such ke I want to be a pioneer or a market leader in this particular industry. I want to work to the best of my abilities. You don't need to mention all those things. Those are fairly obvious things which any person of a sane mind would want to do. तो आप explicitly ऐसा objective लिखोगे, it is not required unless आपका एक specific format हो in which they expect your CV or resume to be. Whatever the company or the college, जो भी है, ठीक है, try to avoid. हाँ, resume writing एक और चीज इसमें, graduation year जब आप starting में आपका the first thing that should be there in your resume is your educational info. आपका 10th के marks, graduation year and percentage and school name आना चाहिए. आपका 12th का graduation year, school, college name, percentage, सब year सब आना चाहिए. The same for your graduation. Even if you are just in the second year, तो first year and second year दोनों का लिखो. थर्ड ईयर आप पास कर चुके हो, थर्ड ईयर या फोर्थ ईयर फाइनल ईयर आपका हो चुका है, तो कंबाइंड मार्क्स लिख दो. तो कंबाइंड मार्क्स लिख दो कि मेरा जो भी है आपका डिग्री, बीकॉम, बैफ, जो भी आपका डिग्री है, बैचलर ऑफ इंजीनियरिंग, टोटल कंबाइंड मार्क्स लिखो. वंस यू डन विद योर ग्रेजुएशन, उसके पहले तो ऑब्वियसली आप कॉलेज में हो, आपके वर्क एक्सपीरियंस भी ज्यादा नहीं है, सो यू वुड वांट टू फिल अप एज मेनी लाइंस एज पॉसिबल. सो फर्स्ट ईयर सेकंड ईयर आप इंक्लूड कर सकते हो वहां पे, to fill up as many lines as possible, because we don't want the CV to be short, resume to be short. ऐसा नहीं लगना चाहिए कि भाई इसके पास कुछ है ही नहीं दिखाने को, तो होता है उतना लाइन भरो, कैसे भी लाइन भरो, बट लाइन भरो. Resume always save it as your first name underscore your last name. Now when you are saving your resume, जैसे for example if I want to send across my resume to an HR or a college, I would want to save it as Jash underscore Mehta, Jash underscore Mehta. ठीक है, so it's clear कि हाँ भाई this CV belongs to this person. They don't need to open the CV to check कि या कौन से आदमी का CV है. They don't need to do that. वो directly CV के नाम से ही, डॉक्यूमेंट के नाम से ही देख के समझ जाते हैं कि भाई ये किसका CV है. ठीक है, so that is there. आप जो जॉब के लिए अप्लाई कर रहे हो, मेक श्योर अगर आपके if there is some leeway to change your particular lines, change some particular lines, make sure you do that. And tailor your achievements or something to the job you're applying to. Tailor your achievements to the job you're applying to. ठीक है, always try to do that. And जब आपका CV resume बन जाए, send it out to at least 5 to 10 people. Ask for their opinion on it and पूछो उनको when you saw this CV or resume, what was your first opinion or your first impression of me. Always do that. 5 या 10 लोग को भेजो. Send it to your parents, send it to your friends, send it to your teachers. किसको भी भेजो, but ask what was your first impression or opinion of you based on that CV or resume. Always try to finish off your CV or resume in one page and save it as a PDF document. Why? Because PDF document को edit करना is a lot tougher than editing a Word document. Word document आप directly भेजोगे, you're basically giving them the license to change anything in that document easily. ठीक है, वो वहां पे mistakes का scope निकल जाता है ना. No one will be able to make any kind of unsaved changes to your document. गलती से भी, कैसे भी, ठीक है, आप पीडीएफ भेज रहे हो, पीडीएफ को चेंज करना बहुत मुश्किल है. So it's always better to save your resume as a PDF format and only send the PDF format, not the Word document. Now, profile building, this is just the last part for resumes. Always try to include achievements jahan pe you won something instead of saying ki I just participated in this particular event. Okay? Because participation is kind of, not that important as winning. Let's be honest, participating is not that important as winning. ठीक है, अगर if you don't have something in your CV, जैसे मैंने आपको बोला आपको लाइन भरने हैं, ठीक है, at that point of time you don't have any winner certificate or medals or anything, show that at least you participated in those events ताकि interest दिखे कि हाँ भाई ये आदमी ने इतने सारे events से participate किया है. He will improve from time to time because he already has the experience of doing these kind of things on a regular basis. So even that shows a certain impression, but obviously having a winner's medal is the best thing to do on your CV. So वो अगर नहीं है तो then participation, but always try to show as many winner's medal or achievements as possible. NGO. Now NGO is a slightly sensitive topic because almost everyone is showing some kind of NGO work in their CV these days. So it becomes kind of a nullifying point कि हाँ भाई ये तो सब कोई कर रहा है, ये तो सब कोई कर रहा है. But if you've actually done a lot of work while being affiliated with a non-profit organization, ठीक है, अगर आपने genuinely कुछ काम किया है तो उसको properly highlight करो. Again, use quantifiable achievements as much as possible so the other person knows that this person has genuinely worked, genuinely done some work over there. ठीक है, so NGO में भी again it's a little sensitive topic, so make sure आपने genuinely वहाँ पे काम किया है if you're including that in your CV. Internship में actual काम करना is a little tough because you just been in an organization for 2 to 3 months. You can't do some ground shifting work. बहुत मुश्किल होता है वो करना. So be honest, be frank. This was the work that was given to me. This was the achievements that I managed to post during that time, and make sure you be as honest as frank as you can because even they know भाई 2-3 महीने के internship में एक आदमी ज़्यादा नहीं कर सकता. It is normal. झूठ बोल के कोई जरूरत नहीं है. ठीक है, यूनिवर्सिटी क्लास एग्जाम्स में रैंक्स, कोई सब्जेक्ट में रैंक्स, ऑब्वियसली मेंशन दैट क्लियरली, very obviously in your CV. If you were the event head, class representative, these are also some things which you would want to include in your CV for sure. ठीक है, now I think we've covered what I just summarized what we've covered so far. We've covered the prerequisites of what has to be done before starting an interview. We've also looked into some of these sectors and industries which are booming and some of the industries and sectors which are not good as such during these current times. We've looked into what are the things we should be talking about in an interview, how to lead the interview in certain directions, and how to create a basic resume or CV. Okay, these are some of the things that we've looked into. Now if someone has any questions or some doubts, I think the floor is open and you can ask me anything.
Yes. Thank you, sir, for your valuable words. The session is now open for question and answer. If anyone has any doubt or any query, you can post your questions in the chat section.
The students who are attending from YouTube live can post their queries in the chat box. The organizer will let you know with soonly. The participants who are attending from Teams can raise their hands. We will allow them to unmute and you can ask the questions.
I actually passed out of Jamnalal Bajaj in 2020 with finance as my specialization. I think that was for Ojas who asked that question in the chat box. JB is a college in Churchgate, Mumbai, if you're not aware of that. Yeah, Pina.
Audible?
Yeah, you're audible.
Sir, so should we mention our achievements in the resume?
Yes, definitely, because your achievements is all your resume is all about your achievements. So if you've done something good, it doesn't matter. ठीक है, at this point your students आपके पास work experience इतना ज़्यादा नहीं होगा, तो 10th तक 11th 12th graduation whatever achievements or things that you've done, please make sure you mention all of them. ये तो आपके सारे CV में clearly जाना चाहिए.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Okay, there are a lot of questions in the chat box. I'll just answer them. Sir, can you explain what is quantifiable achievements briefly? I'm Ashirwad. I think we can talk about that just in detail afterwards. If that is fine with you. What is quantifiable achievements is, okay, say for example, the thing that I mentioned earlier. If you are working for a company, you can, and if you've increased the revenue of the company, what you can do is you can either mention it as I increased my revenue of the company. Okay. Now the two questions that would come to mind for a normal logical person would be कितने से revenue बढ़ाया and कैसे बढ़ाया. ठीक है. So the one thing that you can mention in that particular achievement line of yours in the CV resume is I increased the revenue of my company by this much amount. Thousands, lakhs or crores. Let's say for example, I helped increase the revenue of my company by 20 lakhs by introducing new product lines. Okay. Now you mentioned that you helped increase the revenue of the company. You mentioned the actual amount and you mentioned how you did it. Now the first question that the other person would ask is, ठीक है, 20 लाख से आपने बढ़ा दिया. Which were the new product lines that you introduced? ठीक है, then you can lead off the interview in that direction. But at least आपको एक bare minimum footing मिल गया कि हाँ भाई ये मैंने किया है. ठीक है, so that is what you mean by quantifiable achievement. Can you recommend a few courses that will have good effect on your CV? The courses kind of depend on what kind of thing you're looking for. If say for example, जैसे मैंने बोला कि अगर आप, let's take another example, आप investment banking roles को आप prefer करते हो, तो if you're sorry, if you find any good courses on investment banking online from reputable organizations, do that. क्योंकि वो एक इंटरेस्ट बताता है कि हाँ भाई आई वॉज लुकिंग टू टारगेट दीज काइंड ऑफ रोल्स एंड आई वॉज विलिंग टू लर्न अबाउट देम बिफोर ज्वाइनिंग दिस कंपनी, ताकि आई हैड अ ब्रीफ एंड बेसिक आइडिया कि भाई यहाँ पे काम कैसा होता है, क्या होता है. इट शोज सम काइंड ऑफ इनिशिएटिव ऑन योर पार्ट. सो जो काइंड ऑफ रोल टारगेट कर रहे हो आप, उस हिसाब से आपको कोर्सेज करने चाहिए. मार्केटिंग का कोई कर रहे हो तो मार्केटिंग के वो स्पेसिफिक रोल, सेल्स का कोई अगर आपको टारगेट जॉब करना है तो सेल्स स्पेसिफिक कोर्स करो. मार्केटिंग में आपको ब्रांड मैनेजर बनना है तो ब्रांड मैनेजर स्पेसिफिक कोर्सेज करो. यूडेमी, कोर्सेरा, बेसिक सम वेबसाइट्स जहाँ पे काफी सारे कोर्सेज होते हैं, अपग्रेड और भी काफी सारे दूसरे भी वेबसाइट्स है. यू कैन जस्ट चेक ऑल दीज वेबसाइट्स. दूसरे भी एक दो देख सकते हो आप, बट रोल स्पेसिफिक कोर्सेज करो. रोल स्पेसिफिक, जनरलाइज्ड कोर्सेज मत करो बिकॉज उसका इतना ज्यादा वैल्यू नहीं होता. What we will have to work on facial cosmetics like beard, hair for interview. Beard, as long as possible, make sure you're clean. You're sporting a clean shave. You're sporting a clean shave for an interview. Your hair should be properly set. It should not happen as if आपके बाल बहुत लंबे constantly आपके मुंह पे आ रहे हैं interview के बीच में. That is not something which should happen. Try to keep a clean shave ताकि the other person doesn't pass some kind of a judgment on you based on your facial appearance. That should not happen. You should look ready to work in a corporate environment or ready to join a college, because I've seen colleges जहाँ पे ये strict code है कि भाई any and every person should be clean shaven. हर लड़का clean shaven बैठना चाहिए हर interview के लिए. It happened in my college, which is why I know that. ठीक है, so try to avoid going into that kind of a discussion or thought process. रखना ही नहीं है. Just clean shave कर दो, hair भी short रखो, well to do रखो, तो then कोई issue नहीं होता. Eligibility for specialization in finance. There is no eligibility as such. You can choose your specialization when you get into a college. आपको basically the main thing is getting into that college. The main thing is getting into that college. वो specialization के लिए कोई अलग से मेरे पास कुछ वो नहीं है. I don't think कुछ अलग से कुछ है. ठीक है? So that is one thing. Medium hair length do good in an interview if properly maintained. Again, if properly maintained, medium hair length would be fine. Preferably short rakho. Obviously not. I'm not asking you to do a military cut as such, but make sure it is well maintained. जो भी आप hairstyle रख रहे हो, make sure it is well maintained. It is not something funky. Very good question. Very good question. Sometimes the interviewer asks, do you want to ask anything? What are the possible questions that can be asked in such a scenario? Now, this is something which is of very critical importance because it gives you the opportunity to show that you've researched the company, you've researched the role. Say for example, मुझे investment banking कोई role के लिए मैं कोई company में apply किया है, मैं मेरा final round of interview चल रहा है, then the other person asks के what do you want to ask or do you have any doubts? What would you want to do is make sure you're well read on the current affairs of that particular sector and the company. If the company that you're interviewing at has done something major, has made some major moves, कुछ एकदम ही noteworthy चीज उन्होंने किया है जो न्यूज में काफी recently आई है, make sure you ask them about it. कि भाई you did something XYZ, can I know the rationale behind it because I really like that initiative which you were a part of. So it shows that you want to be a part of that company. You are enthusiastic about being a part of that company. अच्छा लगता है. The other person feels proud of being a part of that company. Even उसका भी self-esteem, self-worth को एक थोड़ा boost मिलेगा कि yeah, I'm doing something good in my life if I'm a part of this company. ठीक है? So again, a brilliant way to showcase to the other person that you're genuinely interested in joining that company. You've read up on the current affairs for that particular company. या आप sector specific भी पूछ सकते हो कि जैसे investment banking role में which are the sectors we are looking to target जहाँ पे ज़्यादा deals होंगे, what are the kind of deals that we are looking at, ऐसा वैसा करके. Again, they won't divulge too much about it because थोड़ा वो trade secrets kind of एक जगह आ जाएगा. But as long as you show initiative, it's always good. It's always good.
Sir, sorry to interrupt. Just let me make some announcement. You have 5 minutes more to ask question and answers. The question and answers will be dropped from 12:30 as resource person has some other schedule to go. And YouTube live students, please post your queries in the group. We will forward it. We'll forward it to sir. Thank you, sir. You may continue.
ठीक है. Just in case I'm dropping the link for a WhatsApp group, if someone wants to chat about all these things in detail, I'll also be dropping my personal phone number. So if anyone wants to get in touch with me via the WhatsApp group or via my phone number, you can do that because I can see there are a lot of questions and I don't want students to miss out on it. I'll just do that. Just give me 1 second before I continue answering questions.
Sir, actually the college protocol does not allow us.
Okay, fine.
Sir, the college protocol does not allow us to connect with the resource person directly. So what we will do that we will collect all the questions and me or else Subha ma'am will be mailing you. So you just respond it and we will share it out.
Sure. No worries. Sorry, I just shared that. I don't know. I can delete it right now.
Yes, sir, you can.
It's not giving me an option to delete that message. Okay, fine. I'll just let it be. I'll just answer questions as much as possible. There are various websites which offer free courses, but they do not give certificates because for that we need to pay. So if any person has completed some course but has not received certificate, should we include that in our CV? Preferably not, because they would want to see the certificate for the course that you've completed. So make sure agar wo course is genuinely worth it, pay the amount and take the certificate. Pay the amount and take the certificate. Okay? In a CV, if suppose we don't have any sports achievements, as in we haven't played any sport professionally, then how can we make a CV strong? Okay? It's not necessary कि हर कोई एक particular sport में अच्छा किया हो. You could have done something good in some extracurricular activity or academics. As long as आपका CV 1 pager proper भर रहा है, you don't need to specifically mention about sports. जरूरी नहीं है हर कोई आदमी sports में अच्छा होगा. That is perfectly fine and normal. कहीं ना कहीं तो आपने कुछ अच्छा किया होगा ना, वो पार्ट आप हाईलाइट करो आपके CV में या रेज्यूमे में. ठीक है? What if we do courses from startups? Would they consider? If it is something which everyone is doing, काफी लोग को पता है वो specific course के बारे में, then go for it. Otherwise, try to do courses from reputable organizations and online institutions. थोड़ा सा preference उसके side रखो. They might be a little more expensive, and I get that people might not want to pay enough, but it's better sometimes to make that payment and get that certificate and degree, whatever it is, from that particular institute and show it in your CV. So sometimes we know the answers, but we are not confident enough. So what can we do at the time? How can we be confident enough? The best way to gain confidence is do a lot of mock interviews. A lot of mock interviews. ठीक है? Practice करो अपने दोस्तों के साथ, अपने parents के साथ. If you have someone who's working in the corporate world, you can ask that person to conduct a mock interview of yours. जितना आप practice करोगे उतना आपका confidence बढ़ेगा. ठीक है? That is the best way to make sure आपका confidence बढ़े. That is the best way. Between an interview, can we switch from one language to the other? Preferably no. Preferably no. Always speak in English. Always speak in English unless the other person insists on speaking in some other language. ठीक है? जैसे for example, you were speaking in English, the other person wanted to interact with you in Hindi. He did it one time. Still continue speaking in English. If he or she does it the second time, that means that they want to converse with you in that particular language. So then you have to switch to Hindi because it might seem rude or inconsiderate of you to continue in some other language. दूसरी बार अगर कोई आदमी बोल रहा है तो हिंदी पे स्विच कर लो, हिंदी या जो भी दूसरे लैंग्वेज में वो बोल रहा है, but preferably speak in English. You want to appear professional. HRs के लिए I don't know any specific courses, but if you we can look about it, we can look into it. आप मुझे अलग से आपका ये जो डाउट है वो भेज देना. I can answer that separately. ठीक है? What if we are going for an interview in a finance company, and so should we show our certificates of photography, dancing, singing? Sorry about that. I think I just got disconnected for a second. Just give me a minute. Yeah. So even if you're interviewing for a finance company, it is perfectly fine to have hobbies. So please, if you have something, do mention that. I think it's already 12:30 and someone had mentioned that time. So should we wrap up? Or
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you for being so patient in answering all the queries that our fellow students had. I would now request Siddesh to come forward and propose the formal vote of thanks.
To begin with, I would like to thank our guest speaker, Mr. Jayesh Mehta, for visiting and enlightening us with his illuminating knowledge. Today's webinar was full of informative concepts and facts, whereas efficiently explained about the technicalities of online versus offline interviews. I thank you for giving us your valuable time. I could also extend my gratitude towards the management of PTVAS Mulund College of Commerce for giving us abundant learning opportunities, and our principal Dr. Sonali Pednekar ma'am and vice principal Dr. KG Rajan sir, all our teachers as well as non-teaching staff for attending this webinar. I would be unjust if I don't thank the organizer of the webinar, Mrs. Silvade. Without whom this webinar would not have been a grand success. Last but not the least, I would like to thank all the students for joining the webinar and making it a major success. Thank you.
Thank you, Siddesh. Thank you for your kind words again. Thank you, students, for listening and participating in this webinar. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Thank you, sir.
Siddesh.
Sir,
Lastly,
any
I
questions?
would like to.
Yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
Is there any announcement, Siddesh? You can go ahead with it.
No, you can go ahead.
Lastly, I would like to conclude today's webinar on the note that change becomes an enjoyable process when done to achieve the higher taste in life. Thank you once again, everyone, for making this webinar a grand success.
We request the participants to leave now.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Sir, you just wait for 2 minutes, sir. There's some formality.
Okay, sure. I'll wait.
Pranjal, please come ahead.
Sorry, come again?
Yeah, Pranjal, can you please turn on your video?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Yes, sir, we are done. We just have to take some small essays. So we are done with it, sir. Thank you so much.
So I can leave or should I stay?
Yeah, you can, sir. Thank you.
Also, Siddesh, would it you'll be forwarding all the queries to me, right?
Yeah, sir. We will make a Word file and we will sending you ahead, sir.
Okay, okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
You have my number, right?
Yeah, sir. I have your number. I will just mail you, or else I will send it in WhatsApp.
Okay, okay. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, everyone else. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Siddesh, please remove all the participants those who are done.
Yeah, just wait, just 2 minutes. I will end, ma'am. I'm going to end Zoom meeting as well, ma'am.